Welcome to the Small Business Sisterhood podcast. I'm your host, Pepper Makepeace, an online business strategist for female solopreneurs and side hustlers, and founder of the Small Business Sisterhood, an online membership community serving small business owners in the first stages of business. Join me as I go behind the scenes with female entrepreneurs, revealing the struggles, strategies, and inspiring stories of these amazing women. If you're interested in connecting with like-minded women, learning effective business strategies from the experts, and being a part of a mastermind group that helps you grow your business, check us out at smallbusinesssisterhood.com. Today we're talking to Lysa Greer of Fresh Take Productions. Lysa brings a comprehensive background in broadcasting, interactive, and print media to every project she produces. She helps her clients improve their online brand presence through direct and business marketing initiatives. Her passion is to help entrepreneurs navigate the online world so they can share their vision and make their own mark. Thanks for being here today, Lysa. I always enjoy talking to you. We get each other.
We do. I don't think we talk enough. I think we should have chats every week.
I'm so in love with Slack now, and I don't want to bother you because I know you're so busy, but I'm
like, no, girl, you ping me. Yeah, you ping me all day long. It's so funny. One thing with Slack I will mention, even though I know this is probably not part of what we should be talking about, but still with Slack, when you have it on your desktop, I didn't realize it took up like a ton of CPUs or whatever. And so one day I'm like, man, alive, my computer's acting like we're in 1999. Like it's really slow. And so I checked my, what's going on my computer, and yeah, Slack was like causing my CPU to be super high. So now I've just left it on my internet and my phone. So I can get notifications on my phone, and then if somebody pings me, I can just jump on in a browser and just access it that way versus having it constantly stream on my computer. I love Slack though. Anyways, okay, enough about Slack. This episode is brought to you by Slack.
You hear that, Slack? Come on.
Where remote teams get together. Join us today. That's my best announcer voice for today.
Oh, Lysa. Why didn't you tell everybody what you do?
I'm an announcer for Slack. No, just kidding. I am a digital production strategist and implementer, which is just a fancy way of saying I get digital assets created for entrepreneurs. If you want to build a website or an ebook, or you want to build your list and you've got assets you need built, I'm your gal.
Awesome.
That's the long and the short. I told somebody I was a digital production strategist one time. They looked at me like, what? I'm really confused. And it took me a while to come up with that title, but it's the title I'm sticking with, by George, because it's what I do. And if that means I have to explain it a little bit for right now, that's okay, because I feel like eventually people will know what that is.
Yeah.
And Natalie Lucier helped me figure that out one day. She had an event off the charts. It was an event she used to put on and host. And the last one that she did, she spoke about what she calls herself. And digital strategist, back when she started, wasn't a real common thing to be called. Now, if you're a digital entrepreneur, you've pretty much heard of digital strategist. But back in her day, it wasn't really, like when she first started out, it wasn't really something that was a norm for a title. And she said it didn't matter. That was what she was going to call herself. That's what she felt she was. And she gave herself permission to call herself what she was. And eventually, it just started building that trend. And I've actually started to see it. Some of the terminology I've used on my website has started to pop up in other places and on other websites. And I'm actually happy about it. Like meet and greets used to be something that I was a radio term.
Uh-huh.
We'd actually have those in our promotions at the radio station. You'd meet and greet with an artist.
Right.
Right. So the meet and greet is where that term came from. And I started using that on my website. And just the other day, I actually came across a site that was using that term. And it was nice because I have not seen it before. And now it's like, oh, they're starting to use that term too. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, and the things that you produce, they're such key elements in starting an online business that people need to understand those concepts.
Digital production strategist, I guess I could really, if I say a strategist or implementer, the reason I have both is just because it answers two pieces that have to happen in your digital production. Mm-hmm. Meaning, you're going to produce something, you have to first have the idea, mm-hmm. and you have to have the strategy around how you're going to execute it.
Right.
And then that's all great to have, but someone has to make it. A sucker has to get implemented somehow.
You mean it doesn't just magically appear?
It doesn't, unfortunately. I mean, unless there's wands that, are from Harry Potter world that happen to exist somewhere that I don't know about.
I want one.
But I do think it's important, though, that people fully understand that part. I think that there's a lot of misconceptions out there with regards to all the money goes in the strategy, which is, yes, very important, because the idea has to have some validation and has to merit and has to have a plan.
Right.
But I do think that improper execution of the idea can make the result appear that it was a bad idea and it wasn't.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's a pet peeve I used to have a lot back in my radio days when we would have a promotional idea. I would feel sometimes on certain ideas there wasn't enough fleshing out and, chatting about it to really determine, okay, can this idea really fly? And how are we going to then execute this idea? Mm-hmm. And let's not just stop there. Let's take it one step further. And what are any possible problems, pitfalls, what have you? Fully understanding your full scope of work is 50% of your battle. And then the other 50% is making sure that it's executed in the degree that you should have it executed and not just slapped together, because then that final outcome can be different. It's like with website design, for example. You can have this wonderful idea in your head of how you want your website to be looking and feeling and have this idea even on a brand concept. But if you're not partnered up with the right designer, I don't care if your fonts are great and your colors are great, it can look like a hot mess. and it can look like it was maybe a high school project.
Right.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. Or the copy can sing on some pages like, oh man, this copy is awesome, but whoa, this design is really bad. You know what I mean? It's the same thing.
Tell me how you came to your current business model. Were you always kind of where you are right now?
Well, right now I'm in the middle of transitioning. Not going to let go 100% of what I'm doing, just transitioning because I've reached my revenue ceiling. I've reached kind of the max number of hours I can work in a day. Mm-hmm. In fact, I've gone over the amount of hours I should work in a day. My self-care has kind of taken a hit in the last year. I've been just so focused on my client work, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that after my first year of business, when I was just trying to figure out what it was I was going to focus on, my focus then needed to be, okay, your rate is maybe not right. That was at the end of my first year in business. That was really where I was landing was, okay, I've got this flow going. I've been doing these types of tasks and projects, and that's great. And now I was reaching a revenue ceiling, but for a different reason. I was capped out on my hours, and my money was okay to get by, but it wasn't enough to really put savings away or pay for health insurance or something.
Right.
So at that point, it was an easy transition to just be like, oh, just, you have to double your rate then. My rate was really low. It was $20 an hour, which in corporate world, when you're leaving a regular job, and I call it that just because I don't know how else to reference that, our old work when we're not the boss, you tell your family you're making $20 an hour and they're like, woohoo, this is awesome, right? You're rolling in the dough. Okay, but dude, that's not, it's not the same thing, okay? There's a lot of other factors into play on there. So after my second year, it went up to 40. And again, same scenario happened last fall where I was reaching that revenue cap again in the sense of I was able to, with that but with that money that was coming in that you would think would be extra, that cash flow really was just going to buying more software or platform or subcontractor work or what have you. So I was really kind of averaging out the same take home for myself. Mm-hmm. But just maybe able to take on bigger projects because I had a little bit of extra help. Does that make sense? So now in my third year, the transition is happening again where the rate had to be adjusted again. And I mention it again only because that's probably one thing I wish I had right from the get-go. Well, there was two things. One was my rate. I should have really been charging this rate that I'm about to go to in 2017. That should have been what I was charging 2-3 years ago. But I didn't know any better. I didn't know the difference. And there's so much conversation out there about rate. It's scary. Yeah. Oh, you should charge your value. Oh, you should charge it based on the market. Oh, it's like you're going to get all kinds of people telling you what to do about your rate. And for me, I'm not going to lie, it probably was a good 3 months of listening to different seminars and webinars and taking a couple courses around it and getting coached around it. The money thing was big for me to navigate that water. And I felt like I wasn't getting the right answer because I'm a very analytical logical person. And to me, I needed to know where this dollar amount was coming from. Like, it couldn't just be an arbitrary number that you just throw the dice in and whatever it lands on, that's your rate. Like, it can't be like that. The value piece also didn't work for me because Bill Barron actually talks about this in his, he has a wonderful free video series around premium packaging. And it starts out with explaining how if you tie your value to a dollar amount, think about what that means. We're not valued at a dollar amount. Last time I checked, we're invaluable if you look at it that way.
Right.
And then if you look at the work that you do, that too, one would argue, well, it should cost different if one person's crafting an email and another person's just uploading the email. And I'm thinking, no, not necessarily, because the skill set to write the email is one type of skill set. Right. And if someone's uploading it, sure, there may be one price point or amount or value to just clicking upload button. But to me, that's not what I'm doing. If I'm clicking upload and that's where it ends, then yeah, I shouldn't be paid that much for it. But if you want someone who's going to click upload and make sure that it's optimized with regards to the way it looks and feels and to double checking times, and there's a little bit of like that love that's put into just that task, then that skill set warrants a higher price point. It's such a touchy, tricky thing. And for me, I needed to know why I was charging what I was charging. Yeah. Tara Gentili, I think, helped me the most. She had a class in creative market, and she was the first person to me that explained it in a way where the dollar amount is one thing and what comes into that ratio is your skill set, yes, your actual time spent, yes, to a degree, but your profit margin and your taxes, all the other like bells and whistles that you kind of don't think about until it's tax time, or right. You have to pay your insurance, or you have to pay for this, platform to keep up this service. So I was able to kind of craft a chart for myself, and that way I knew that when I was putting out a dollar amount, I felt confident in that dollar amount because I knew where that number came from. Yes. And I think that that's really the long and the short is when you're just hoping and wishing or you see somebody else charge that amount so you think you should charge for it, I find that eventually it's going to bug you because you don't know where that's rooted in. Right. And when you do know where it's rooted in, you're able to get out there with a little bit of confidence and be like, this is my rate.
Absolutely. It's such an important piece too, because when you are talking to someone about that price point, that's a big conversation to have with somebody, and especially when you're starting out, like that's a super awkward conversation that you're probably not going to be comfortable with to begin with. And if you don't like your pricing, then that adds a huge level of awkwardness to that conversation. And so I think it's really important to be comfortable with your rates and to really understand in yourself. I think you don't need to tell everybody about why the rate is what it is, but you just need to know in yourself why it is the way it is. And it ties back to how you structure your business too, because when I first started 8 years ago with my coaching business and I was trying to understand how I wanted to structure my day-to-day life in business, and I was trying to figure out, how many clients I would need if I was comfortable charging this amount per person, how many clients would I have to have per week or per month to make what I needed to make, like I soon realized, oh dear, I do not want to do that.
No, absolutely.
As an introvert, I can't handle talking to 5-6 different clients a day. Like, oh my God, like no, thank you. And so that forced me to really look at my business model and say, okay, well, I need to do more group work and I need to figure out how to restructure this so that I can really make this work for myself. And that price is kind of the beginning of that conversation internally of how do you make this work?
And how do you feel about it? It does make a big difference. Yeah. The other part I think too is we touched on this in my squads group. We talked about price and we also talked about time, because that's those are the two heavy hitters that you're going to rub up against in terms of getting used to the new way of doing things in your world when you become an entrepreneur. When you're in corporate America, you are expected to show up for work and do your job and then you leave. And you're paid a price for that, salary or hourly, depending on what your structure is. And then there's vacation pay, and then there's 401k, and there's all these other things. Well, when you leave that, people, first of all, when you become your own entrepreneur and you mention to people that you work for yourself, there is a little bit of a stigma. Oh, you get to do whatever you want. You get to work in your pajamas or take a naps and whatever. It's like, gosh, I wish I could take a nap. But the thing is that why did I say I wish I could take a nap? because if the reality is I should have that mentality of if I'm tired and it's 2:00 in the afternoon and I need a nap, I should be able to go take a nap. Did I not start my business to lead a life I want to lead? Or am I trying to run a business with an old philosophy that my boss has where I have to be at work at 8:00? Because, and I'm saying this only because that has been very recent, that I've recognized that I have a lot of learning to do there, internal learning, and breaking a mold that has been instilled in me for as long as I've been in the workforce, which is when it's 8:00, you really need to be at your desk, Lise. And you should not be leaving your desk until a minimum 5:00 because it's 8 to 5. That's when you should be working.
Right.
And that's what I do right now and so what ends up happening is if I've got, a list of things for my clients to do, there's this guilt or this heaviness that comes on me if I'm not working. Mm-hmm. And so a couple weeks ago it was Thanksgiving and it was Thanksgiving Day. And I thought to myself, I can take today off because it's Thanksgiving Day. I don't have to work today because it's a holiday and my clients won't expect me to work today. Well, what kind of logic is that in the sense of that should be any given day that I feel like I want to take a day off?
I had that exact same conversation in my head.
You did?
I did.
Oh, I'm so glad I'm not the only one. And there for a while, I thought I was literally going bananas. Like I thought I must be some kind of closet workaholic, which don't get me wrong. I think to a degree there's a little bit of me that is, but I feel very guilty. For example, let's say I need to go run an errand to get stamp. Okay, let's just say hypothetically. I will wait until it's a lunch hour or until it's a time of day when maybe it's okay that I'm not at my desk. Like it's crazy cakes, but that's how I feel inside. If it's the middle of the day and I could schedule a dental appointment for my kid, I won't do it. I'll schedule it when, like, do you have any evening appointments? Or, do you have any appointments after 4? Or because I think to myself, I can't leave my desk. It's crazy. And I have my phone, I feel supreme guilt. It's not fun at all. And so lately I've been realizing no one knows if you're taking a nap. No one knows if you're going to the bank or, taking a spa day, for crying out loud. Like your clients don't know. There's no Big Brother camera that I know of anyways, in my house. And Rachel Cook talked about this one time. She said, if you're not the boss of your company and your client is, then you have however many clients you have, that's how many bosses you have. Right? And that's what it feels like if I'm being super honest. But not because my clients necessarily make me feel that way. It's because I'm doing it to myself. It feels like a go, like calm down, sister, like take a breath, and this isn't how you want to run your business, so why are you? And it's because we take these patterns and these things that we used to do from our old work, quote unquote, and we are infusing it in the way we do business, and we don't have to do that. And that circles back to the title. I can call myself whatever I want to. I can be Lisa Banana Rabbit or whatever. I mean, I was trying to pull a friend's reference there, and I realized quickly that it wasn't going to be kosher, so I thought, no, switch it quick. Sorry.
Oh, that's beautiful. Hi ladies, I wanted to tell you about ConvertKit. ConvertKit is a powerful email service provider, and I'm so in love with it. It's tailored toward content-driven businesses like bloggers, service providers, and podcasters. They make it so easy to create automated content and provide a lot of useful tools to help you have amazing results with your email marketing. One of my favorite features is their robust tagging feature. For example, if someone buys your course, you won't keep sending them the promo emails telling them to buy it. I hate it when I get sales emails for products I've already purchased, don't you? It really adds a personal touch to be able to send targeted emails to subscribers. And just for being a Small Business Sisterhood podcast listener, you can get a free 30-day trial. Just go to smallbusinesssisterhood.com/convertkit for more information. So what are you transitioning to now? Like, what's your strategy moving forward, and how are you trying to look at it differently?
Well, I am trying to answer the call that my clients, again, are coming to me hoping to answer the do it together level of doing business, in the sense of that I've got my DIYers who come to me and ask me for maybe some assistance to get through a certain element in their business or help with production on something, and they just want to get started, kind of get a little bit of know-how, and then they'll take it on themselves. And sometimes it's because they want want to do it themselves. Other times it's budget focused. You know, they're trying to save money. And then I have other clients on the other spectrum who they don't have time. They're just like, dude, take care of it. You know, or they know that that's not their zone of genius, so they want to hire me. Like, can you please help me with this? Right. And I take care of this. So I've got the DIY group. I've got this, you know, the Do It For You group. And so in the middle, this Do It Together is who I'd like to focus on in 2017. So my biggest goal is to create an environment where we can do it together. I'm working on some ideas for workshops, basically where you can get some support, so you're not so by yourself when you're working on something, and in terms of the production of whatever you're working on in your business. And again, probably we'll see a lot of DIYers to a degree there, but I think that it's really also there's gonna be room for people who maybe have their own team or they kind of want to understand a little bit more how to execute something so that they can then replicate that in their business. And I think that a workshop environment is so fun because I love workshops myself. For one, they're short bursts of creativity that can happen. And I like them too because there's a little bit more of a personal feel to, like, with the class, and you meet new people, and I don't know, it's just, I like that environment. I always have. I like workshops. And I like it too because you're accomplishing something inside. You're not just like getting together and chatting about something. You're actually, let's do something together and get the feedback, and it's just fun. I like them. So that's what I'm going to be working on in 2017. And I'm hoping that works to fuel in the future more automated work, because that's really the only model I can really go to at this point is I've got the one-on-one covered. So the next is the one-to-many. And what does that look like? So one-to-many for me is going to be workshops. And so we're going to try those out. And if they work, great. If they don't, then we'll make a shift when that happens. And then after that, it's going to be one-to-many on a larger scale. So like the initial one-to-many, like I call it phase 1 of one-to-many, is the workshops, because you know, however many come. And then I'll probably have a cap. But then the one-to-many where it's just kind of wide open and people it would be more like a course or a program or something like that. And that's automated and people can just take at their leisure, would be what would be on the future horizon. We'll see what happens.
So right now you're pretty booked full with one-on-one clients. So what is the process to get from booked full with one-on-one to, you know, still having some one-on-one, but also then incorporating the workshops?
Well, because I'm at that point again where I'm slowly getting my rate up to where it should have been, right? So I'm doing that last phase of, okay, now we got to take it up to the next tier. And then once we're here, we can kind of stay here for a little bit. I have a feeling probably, because this is what happens. People come and go. They don't always stay with you forever. So I know that when that happens, I'll have a little bit of white space open in my schedule. And that's where I'm going to be able to infuse some of these elements in that day where probably won't have client work booked out, you know, and scheduled. I'm working really hard towards allocating a certain number of clients per day to work on, per month rather. I like to go no more than 2 per day. So based on the number of hours they've purchased, which again, I'm still on that kind of model where it does sort of like transition to an hour schedule, because, you know, if I'm building a website, for example, it's going to take a certain amount of time. So once I look at my calendar, I can see already that there's these little pockets that are opening up. And so my plan is to utilize those pockets to build out this other element in my business.
Awesome. So you've talked about how you make these shifts in your business or your pricing structure over time. How do you know when it's time to make that shift? How do you know when it's right?
It becomes painful. And I know that sounds terrible, but when every year, about this time of year actually, I start to feel, I hate to use the word burnout, but I think that that's what it is. It feels really heavy in my business. I'm really maxed out on my time. Everything's just kind of going a little cross-eyed. Part of that then I'm realizing is one of 2 things. 1, did you take on more than you could chew? Okay, if I took on more work than I had on my schedule to take on, why did I take it on? Is it because I needed more money? And if I did, why is that the case? Then maybe my rate's off. Does that make sense? So the first pain point could be a mixture of taking on a lot of work because there's a number you're trying to meet, and maybe you're not meeting that number because your price point's wrong.
Right.
Bill Barron talks about this a lot with his packaging. He talks about it's easier to sell a couple high-end packages or high-end items and really knock those out of the park because you only have 1 or 2 or 3 people on that versus, 75 little things. Right. It just makes sense. So that's where honestly, your pain points are going to tell you what part might be wrong. And if the pain point is, I'm not seeing enough work, maybe your pain point is you're not busy enough and I'm not selling anything, that still could be a price issue. It could be too high, right? Then if it's selling like hotcakes and you are maxed out on your time, this is again with the one-on-one, and you're barely making ends meet, that price point is too low. So that's where the marriage comes in. The other is the lifestyle balance that we talked about. I really need to look at my schedule, and this is what I've done with the work I did with Tara Gentile, is chart out what your ideal day would be. How many hours feasibly should I be working every day? Not can, should. And however many hours that is, multiply that by the number of days you want to work in the week, multiply that by the month, and don't multiply that by the year. You have to factor in, I want a couple of weeks off if I want to take vacation or something like that. And then do the math and see, how much do you want to make for the year? Divide that by the total number of hours you actually have to work. And you're going to have an idea of how much you should be making per month in sales. Right. Divide that again by the hours. You can kind of actually craft how much you should be bringing in. And then you can think to yourself, okay, if that dollar amount is $500 a day, for example, do I have a package that exists right now that answers that? And if so, how many then per day should I be selling to execute them correctly? That's sort of like the flow that you go on when you're trying to structure all of that out. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, totally. And I want to just mention again what you had said earlier about even when you doubled your rates, you were still making the same amount essentially because you had to hire people, you had to, you had added expenses that, like these 6-figure courses that people talk about, you might make 6 figures, but you're not taking in 6 figures. You might be you might have crazy expenses that go with that you're really not bringing home a lot,
Exactly.
I think factoring that in is really important when you're looking at how much do you need to bring in, including expenses, that it evens out to what you really need to live.
And that's exactly what I started feeling. In that first year of business, I did everything myself. I think I had maybe one girl that I was subcontracting to who helped me write blogs, I think. You know what I mean? And then my second year, I brought in a VA and I started working with coaches and I started taking programs that were a little bit pricier because I needed some of that work around, for my business. So that money that, like you said, that money that was maybe coming in was being spent in other ways. Right. And that's another piece that I think I didn't think about when I was looking at doing my prices. I didn't factor in my hosting costs and my Hootsuite account or Edgar account or my, QuickBooks. There's a ton of stuff there's expenses. Right. And when you add up those little expenses, they actually can add up to, a chunk of change. Then you factor in your education because it makes you a better, not a better person, but it develops your skill set so that you can better serve your clients. Right. And so it does come back into the business as an investment for the business. So yeah, those are definitely things too that you have to think about when you're looking at how much you need to make for the year for yourself. There's your take home, and then there's how much do I really need to run this thing the way that I want to run it.
Right. It's kind of like a house. If you have a tiny little house, your utilities are going to be really low. Your heating and, your water bill and all that is going to be really low. But if you have this ginormous house, you're going to have a lot more expenses. I have seen for sure in my business, the more money I am making, the more my expenses are, because to support that level of business, it just takes a lot more to run it and keep it going.
Absolutely. I like the house analogy just because when you're building that, we could go on a whole other conversation about having the right tools and the right contractors on staff. Right. But that's a topic for another day.
When you were first starting your business, was there anything really surprising or difficult that you weren't expecting in that first year that happened?
Right out the gate, I had 2 things wrong. I didn't call myself the right thing, and I didn't charge the right amount. There's probably a third that came out in the second year, which was I was offering way too many things. In other words, it was pretty much just, I'll do whatever you need me to do. So I became a dumping ground for literally everything that didn't fall into a specific bucket. So that was like a perfect storm for feeling like I was just not focused.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I wasn't focused. It was just because I didn't know how to approach it any other way.
Mm-hmm.
My nature is to help people.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you need me to do, I'll figure it out and I'll do it. And I have that can-do attitude. So it's like, if I don't know how, I'll figure it out, or I'll find someone, or, I'll make it happen for you. And that also put me in some peril, because there were times when it was a big, there would be like things under the hood, I say, that are way out of my skill set, and then I had to go hunt and find the solution. And that caused me anxiety and stress, and it's like, whew. So I had to learn to also say no, which was really hard.
Yeah.
Really, really hard. Saying no is not easy for me.
Yeah.
And then I inadvertently will say, sure, I can do that. Sure, I can do that. Sure, I can do that. And then the person takes it as, oh, she's handling it. And then I just feel this immense pressure to handle it right away. And when you do that too many times, next thing you know, you've got 50,000 things you got to do right now.
Right.
It's impossible.
Right. And when you're first starting out and it's just you, there's no way to do it all.
No, it's impossible. I mean, it really truly is. Or you'll make yourself sick. And I used to think it was a myth of degrees. Maybe not a myth, but I was like, yeah, right. You can't gain weight from stress. That's so silly. Let me tell you something, people. Yes, you can. Okay? It's called cortisol, and it's a hormone that's released. And let me tell you something. I wish it burned calories instead of like backed on pounds.
Right.
Terrible.
Well, don't they say that, on top of the stress part of it, don't they say that like sitting is the new smoking, where it's like
Yep.
so bad for you?
Very bad for you. So I invested in a stand-up desk.
Do you like it?
Right? Thinking, oh, that'll answer that problem.
Yeah.
Well, you have to remember to stand. Meaning, there's times where 4 hours have passed and I've been immersed in a project.
Right.
And I'll look and I haven't drank any water. I haven't stood up. I mean, I'm sure this is making health coaches roll over and wail, but it's the truth. If I'm being super honest, that's exactly what's happening right now. That's why my new, not just with getting the transitioning for the work I do in place, the transitioning of my schedule has to happen.
Right.
I have to be able to say no. I have to be able to, again, it's in my handout when my office hours are, right? It says, clear as a bell. This is when I'm available. The most difficult things are those. And shedding that old mentality of corporate America and understanding you're your own boss and what does that even mean to you?
Right.
And you being okay with saying no. If you're anything like me, those are going to be your pressure points.
Yeah.
I mean, I work with a coach, and that was another thing too. I wish I would have known from the get-go how helpful finding the right coach would have been. I went through like maybe two, but now I found one before I found my, the third. But she is wonderful, and I really feel the difference between having one and not having one. They're different than consultants. I feel like I could use my own consultant every once in a while, because what I like about consultants is they kind of tell you what to do. And there are days when I want to be told what to do. I don't want to, I tell other people what to do, but sometimes I want someone to tell me what to do. Coaches are not like that. Coaches are more, they want you to figure it out for yourself. They're trying to help you get to that answer so that you can be armed with the tools to do that later.
Right.
Consultants are people who tend to tell you what to do based on their own experiences, right? Like, this is what happened to me. This might help for you. And mentors are like a bit of a mixture of both. Having someone like that in your back pocket from the get-go will make you grow faster.
Yeah.
It really, really will, if you have the right one.
Yeah. I think that having a community of people that really support you from the beginning, that's why I'm starting the Sisterhood, where, you have people that you can talk to that get what you're trying to do and are in there with you trying to figure things out.
Having that support group too is really, really important, especially for the ones who have the type of business model that is remote.
Yes.
Meaning, when we're doing that type of work that just requires you to have a computer and a laptop and that's it, and you can do it anywhere,
Right.
It's easy to isolate yourself and just focus on the work. And then the next thing you know, days turn into weeks, turn into months, turn into years, truly, where you just don't see people. And I know that sounds really crazy, but it's the truth. Like, I'm really bummed out because this year there wasn't an event, like an off the charts to go to. I had gone to off the charts the first year when I was in business, then I went the second year, and then this year there wasn't one, and I missed an event where I could be around other people. And I'm looking for one for next year because I feel it's like really, really important to be around people who do the same type of work.
Yeah.
And yeah, sisterhood is truly important. Collaborators, professional partners, people that are just have got your back. They're not just there to sell you and pitch you. They're there to support you and help you because they know that one day they're going to need it too. You know what I mean? It's like a yin and a yang. So family is like that for each other, right?
Yeah.
At least they're supposed to be.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you being part of my family, my entrepreneurial family. Like it helps me to be able to talk to women like you that get me, and we have similar like stuff that comes up and things that we can celebrate. And like, I appreciate that about my relationship with you, and it's awesome. So thank you for talking to me and sharing your story.
You're welcome. And ditto. I love that you're doing this work. I love that you have this base. I think it's super important. I think that this type of work is the work that is going to make or break future businesses, which is why I think it's so important. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of it.
Thank you, Lysa, for talking with us today. You can find out more information about Lysa and the link to her website in the show notes for this episode at smallbusinesssisterhood.com/8. I hope you found this episode useful and inspiring. If you did, please pop over to iTunes and leave a review. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.